Hi everybody, my name is Paul Noworyta, and I'm the most famous rollerblader you probably never heard of. Find out what I did in the sport. I really became famous in rollerblading for two reasons. Number one, in 2003, I became the oldest pro rookie vert skater on the Pro Tour at age 33. No one had done that before. But even bigger, and to me more importantly, I became the only pro vert skater in the world to compete after having a kidney transplant. And in 2006, my autobiography was published, and the sport has been great to me, and I look forward to many more years skating vert. In 1987, I came down with a really bad case of mono with strep throat. And within a year's time, that strep throat virus killed my kidneys. I was down to less than 10% function. Doctors told me that I either had a choice of going on dialysis, a kidney transplant, or if I did nothing, I wouldn't be around much longer. And thankfully, my father had the best match. He gave me one of his kidneys in 1989. Things went well, but doctors told me that I'd only have maybe 12, 15 years at most with this new kidney, and I'd probably need another kidney transplant. Well, that was 32 years ago, and I'm still going strong today. I grew up in Buffalo, New York, and way back when sort of the first wave of concrete skate parks was hitting America from the skateboarding industry in the mid to late 70s, my dad took me to a skate park in 1978. Now, I really didn't know what was going on. In fact, I think my dad, he went down the snake run, hit a stone, and took a tumble, and that was probably the last time he was gonna be at a skate park. So it wasn't until about 5 years later, when I was into BMX racing, that I discovered transition and vert and a whole new way of looking at those curved ramps. And so I started racing BMX back in the early 80s, and propped up against a telephone pole was a quarter pipe. And I saw guys kind of going full speed up this quarter pipe, doing their trick above the ramp and coming back down. And I said, wow, that's cool. I want to do this. And so I spent the next 4 years in the BMX industry. I transitioned from racing more into freestyle and built my first half pipe in the backyard. And then from those BMX days, I found skateboarding. And skateboarding, I spent about 4 years skating street, skating a half pipe, not quite as big as they are today. But back in '95, that's when I had moved to Florida from Buffalo. I'd made the transition from Buffalo to Florida after having the transplant. And I'm sitting on my dad's couch one day, and lo and behold, there goes X Games 1. The first X Games is on TV, and I see these guys I thought were on roller skates. I had no clue about rollerblading. And I was like, what are these guys skating on? And I know that feeling. I want that feeling again. Because at this point, I had probably taken maybe 4 years off of any type of ramp skating activity. So the next day, I went out and bought a pair of rollerblades, found a little mini ditch ramp concrete thing here in South Florida, and the rest is history, as they say. So in 1995, I met up with a group of skaters in Fort Lauderdale that skated for a skate shop called Skater's Edge. And this would have been, again, 1995. You had the likes of Frankie Morales, Aaron Feinberg within that group. I'm not sure if they actually skated for the skate shop, but they were part of the group of skaters that I was hanging out with. And so this being 95, who would have known what great things lie ahead for both of them. But really my biggest influences overall in the sport, I'd have to say Chris Edwards would probably be number one, and the company Rollerblade as a whole. Rollerblade has supported me over the past 25 plus years. They've always been super cool with me, and I can't really say enough good things about Rollerblade. Going back to kind of my local folks here, my local skaters, I wouldn't have become pro without the friendship, help, and motivation of my buddy Elmer Palan. We both went through the amateur ranks together. We spent 7 years on the amateur circuit before both finally turning pro that same year in 2003. So I owe him a lot. Once I became pro and I was on the pro tour, I looked up to everybody. But some names that come to mind would be like Mike Budnick, Fabiola, Shane Yost. There's so many to name, and I don't want to leave anybody out, but those are just, obviously some of the names of the great vert skaters. Marco De Sante, Cesar Andrade, that whole Brazilian crew. I do want to mention though, as an older skater, I looked up to a particular skateboarder named Mark Lake, and he was about 10 years older than I was. And he's still skating today, which is great, because when I skate with him, I always feel like the young guy again. So having Mark Lake around was a huge inspiration, because I saw what he could do 10 years ahead of me. He was still pulling inverts and airs, and that always made me feel good. So as an older skater, I really never felt my age until I was skating with a group of, let's say, 12, 13, 14-year-olds. And then, I saw the energy and the difference in the stamina they had. So that was always a little bit of an issue for me. When it came to injuries, I healed up pretty well. The first, 3 or 4 years of skating, man, I don't even remember a time where I wasn't bumped and bruised. I spent 7 years on the amateur circuit. And honestly, those, first couple of years skating, let's say from 95 to 97, I basically sucked. I had no style. I had no consistency. In fact, a funny story, I had heard through the grapevine that Cesar Mora saw me either at an event or a contest, saw me skate, not the greatest. I think that's when he decided to stay eternally 26 years old. Ultimately, I got to the pro tour. It took a lot longer than I wanted it to, but everything worked out in the end. So over the past 25 years, as most skaters, I've been banged up, bruised up. I've had well over 100 plus injuries. But my worst skate-related injury would have been the summer of 1999, outside of Atlanta in a small town called Snellville, Georgia. I'll never forget it, and here's what happened. I was contracted by the ASA to do a demo for Nestle, and the ASA had provided their portable metal, steel, frame, and surface ramp. And I noticed that at the top of the ramp, someone had peeled off a big sticker, and it kind of left like a gooey residue. And it just so happened that week in Snellville had been record temperatures, so it was like 98 plus degrees, high humidity. And during one of the runs, I felt my skate slip out during doing a trick. And I told my friend, hey, be careful, because I almost slipped out because of something on the ramp, I think. And the very next run, I came up, did a huge backflip, had all the confidence in the world, and my left skate slid completely out from under me. I fell backwards with the full weight of my body, breaking my leg in 3 places. I broke the tib, I broke the fib, and I spiral fractured my knee. I was devastated. Of course, it hurt like crazy, but I was more upset with the fact that I thought this was it. This was the end of my skating career. I remember having a tear in my eye and sitting on the bottom of the ramp in tears, not because of the pain, although that was astronomical, but really because I thought, my gosh, this is it. All that work I put in, and it's done. Well, that turned into a lawsuit against the ASA, not once, but twice. Things ended up working out with that. I eventually dropped the lawsuit and realized my future as a skater was more important than to get involved with some legal action. But that was definitely my worst accident, spending 9 months in a cast, 6 months in a full leg cast, and 3 months in a short cast. That was a tough one. Depression set in. I was angry. It was not a good time. But I overcame it, got through it, and went on to make the pro tour 2 years later. When rollerblading was removed from the X Games, I believe in 2005, it was completely gone. It was definitely a big hit to the sport, especially those folks who were focused on competition, and that was their motivation, and had set goals. And the X Games would have been, the peak, or certainly, a big highlight of that whole effort. That was a tough one. I think Arlo Eisenberg has a couple of videos out there on YouTube. explaining his view of what happened. I mean, he had the inside scoop. He was working for ESPN in the X Games, so if anybody would know for sure, it would be him. But obviously someone at ESPN or a group of people just didn't like rollerblading. You know, we were a new sport. I think we were also an immature sport. Again, we had, you know, pros who were 13, 14, 15 years old, and when sponsors can dish out money and free hotels and it's party time, things happen, and I think inline probably got a bad rap and people just piled on. I hope that ESPN and the X Games will eventually add rollerblading back in. I don't know for certain, but I think we have a good group of skaters. Right now, the sport is growing. It's becoming popular again. What we need, I believe, is we need an advocate for the sport of rollerblading. Someone who has the respect, someone who has the knowledge, and someone who can be that go-between from our sport of rollerblading to the more corporate, you know, ESPN side. We need a good advocate, a good supporter and champion of rollerblading, and then I think at that point, we'll see some good things happen for rollerblading and the X Games. So my faith plays a strong role in my skating. I mean, we are here at Ramp 48 in Fort Lauderdale, which is fully supported by Calvary Chapel and the church. I mean, I am so thankful and so blessed to be skating in the house of God. It is just awesome. For me, it's been a personal journey, and without the divine creator, none of this would be here. None of us would be here. None of us would, I think, would be skating. So I'm definitely blessed, and I'm thankful. You know, more recently, I looked into, on YouTube, came across some videos titled NDE Testimonies. That's near-death experience testimonies. If you get a chance, throw that into YouTube and listen to the testimonies of people who basically died on the operating table and what they saw in a glimpse of the next life after this. It is simply amazing. It's jaw-dropping, and it will give you the chills. It's great stuff. There's lots of love there. So if you have the time, and I encourage it, go to YouTube, put in NDE for near-death experience testimony, and I think you'll really love what you're going to hear. So my top 3 skating career moments would have to be, number 3 would be my Hollywood moment. I was chosen to be a stunt performer on the movie called From Justin to Kelly. That I think was about 2003. Me, my buddy Elmer, a few other skateboarders. We had a fun time on the set. It definitely paid the most. I think that was about a $6,000 payday for 5 seconds of screen time, 1 week of work. Those are the kind of gigs I definitely would like to have more of, plus royalties for a few years after that. Number 2 would have been skating in a Tony Hawk show. And I had the privilege and the honor to be in 2 Hawk shows up in Universal Studios in Orlando. I mean, and I was a paid performer. I gladly would have paid Mr. Hawk to let me skate with him in the show. He even let me close out one of the shows, so he was at the bottom of the ramp. I was the last skater to go. Pulled off the biggest run I could. He was happy. The crowd went nuts. I mean, it was a full-on rock star moment. It was great music, loud music, people cheering. These people paid to watch us skate. And it was an experience like no other. So that would have been number 2. Number 1, though, by far, would have been in 2002 when I qualified for the ASA Pro Tour. I mean, that really, for me, that was my whole mission for the past 7 years up to that point in skating. I had literally put in blood, sweat, and tears into making that dream come true. So once I turned pro, I think that year was Thumper Nagasako in first, Fred Volpe from France was in second, my buddy Elmer Palan came in third, and I came in fourth. They took the top 4 guys, so I just squeaked in. I was thankful, and it was just unbelievable. So those are my top 3. I still skate vert twice a week. If I'm really lucky, 3 times a week. But I definitely feel, the age is creeping in because injuries are probably my biggest obstacle If I stick to, safe skating, it's fun, it's enjoyable still, but sticking to safe tricks is hard when you're a vert guy. You want to do the bigger tricks, your McTwists and flips and spins, and sometimes even try to learn something new. A little more difficult to do at an older age, but I still enjoy doing my bag of tricks that have been ingrained in me. I've been the only inline skater for a while on the vert ramp, but I'm just now seeing a group of folks, more interest, some younger kids, some older kids, coming into the sport now. And we have a great group of vert skateboarders, and here at Ramp 48, which is my home, they have been more than supportive in allowing us to have this beautiful vert ramp behind me here as part of their facility. And we often skate a few other ramps here in South Florida, but Ramp 48 is definitely my home. The future of rollerblading looks good. I mean, you have some of the older pros who are relaunching their brands, specifically Chris Edwards. He relaunched Birth, and I would encourage you to go Google him and check out the new Birth lineup of clothing and events he has going on. So I think it looks strong. I've noticed more and more people every week, or at least every couple weeks, getting into rollerblading, again, from the young to folks coming out of the woodwork that really miss skating and want to get back into it. So I think it's a strong future. My advice to new skaters would be go out and have fun. Set some goals. Definitely buy a set of pads and get a helmet. At a minimum, wear your knee pads and a helmet. I've been a big advocate for wearing protective equipment for a long time, and that's really one of the only reasons, or probably the reason, why I'm still able to skate and do as many tricks as I am doing now, is because I always wore my protective gear. You don't want to have a concussion or some other injury, take you out of the game well short of what your potential is. So definitely, think about that. Think about your health. But I mean, look, set the goals, go have fun. If you need some motivation, let your friends motivate you. Try to copy their tricks. Let other skate gatherings motivate you, or think about doing shows for the public. Let that motivate you. Whatever works for you, get that motivation, that drive. And once it becomes a passion, that's when it gets really fun. Just enjoy the heck out of it. And that goes for both street, vert, and also park. If you want to be a vert skater, there's a little extra something you need to do. It's a different risk level, but I would say to all the skaters out there, don't miss out on vert skating just because it looks intimidating. Take steps to get on the ramp. Simply pump that transition. Do a backside stall. Try an invert. Once you get hooked on it, it's like nothing else out there. So I'm definitely happy to be a vert skater. So my final thoughts and messages to all the skaters out there is, once you figure out what kind of skater you are, whether that be street, vert, park, bowl, concrete, skate light, pro-am, whatever it might be, once you figure that out, be thankful, be grateful for every moment. Look, it doesn't last forever, and I know for me, I give thanks every time I drop in the ramp, every time I show up at the skate park. I'm thankful just to be here. And so try to give back and teach that next generation. Teach those younger kids, or anybody, might even be an older guy like me who has an interest in getting started. Take some time and go up to that person and ask if they need any help, or if you can give them any advice to help better their skate experience. And so that's really my overall message, is to be thankful and grateful for what we have in our sport. All right, I want to thank everybody for their time today. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Stay well, stay safe, God bless, and keep rolling.